Picture this: four foul-mouthed 8-year-olds bundled up in winter coats, standing at a snowy bus stop in a small Colorado mountain town. One of them is about to die in the most ridiculous way possible, and his friends will react with nothing more than mild annoyance. This is South Park, and if you've somehow made it through the last quarter century without encountering Stan Marsh, Broflovski, Cartman, and Kenny McCormick, well, you're in for quite the journey. What started as crude construction paper animation created by two University of Colorado film students has become one of the longest-running and most controversial animated series in television history. But South Park isn't just a cartoon about kids swearing and getting into absurd situations. It's a cultural time capsule, a satirical mirror held up to American society, and perhaps most remarkably, a show that has maintained its ability to shock, provoke, and entertain for over 2 decades. The beauty of this timeline isn't just in its longevity, but in how it has evolved alongside the very culture it mocks. When Trey Parker and Matt Stone first brought their paper cutout characters to life, the internet was still a novelty, cell phones were luxury items, and the idea of a reality TV star becoming president was pure fantasy. Yet here we are, and South Park has documented, mocked, and somehow predicted the chaos of modern American life. From its humble beginnings as a 5-minute Christmas short featuring a profanity-laden showdown between Jesus and Santa Claus, to its current status as a cultural institution with its own Broadway musical, video games, and streaming deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars, South Park has consistently pushed boundaries while staying relevant. Episodes tackle everything from celebrity scandals and political elections to global pandemics and social media hysteria, often airing just days after real-world events occur. What makes this timeline particularly fascinating is how it functions both as a snapshot of specific moments in American history and as a continuous narrative about growing up in an increasingly absurd world. The 4 main characters remain perpetually in 4th grade, creating a unique temporal space where contemporary issues can be explored through the lens of childhood innocence, corrupted by adult stupidity. This format allows serious topics like terrorism, racism, and political corruption to be addressed while maintaining the anarchic spirit that made the show famous. Parker and Stone have never shied away from controversy, and their willingness to offend everyone equally has become a defining characteristic. South Park doesn't pick sides in the traditional sense. Instead, it revels in pointing out the absurdities and hypocrisies on all sides of any given issue. This has led to lawsuits, death threats, censorship battles, and countless think pieces analyzing its cultural impact. Yet, through it all, the creators have maintained their commitment to creative freedom and their belief that nothing should be off-limits for comedy. Understanding this timeline means grasping how the show has served as both a product of its time and a predictor of things to come. Episodes that seemed outrageous when they first aired often prove remarkably prescient years later. The portrayal of social media, celebrity culture, and political polarization feels less like satire and more like documentary when viewed through the lens of subsequent real-world events. The technical evolution tells its own story. From painstaking construction paper cutouts of early episodes to sophisticated digital animation of today, South Park has maintained its deliberately crude aesthetic while dramatically improving production capabilities. This evolution allows creators to respond to current events with unprecedented speed, sometimes creating entire episodes in days to comment on breaking news. But perhaps most importantly, this timeline reflects the journey of its creators and audience. What began as irreverent humor of college students has matured into sophisticated social commentary, while never losing the juvenile spirit that made it special. The show has grown up alongside its viewers, addressing more complex themes while maintaining the core belief that laughter is the best response to an increasingly complicated world. As we embark on this chronological journey through South Park's history, we'll explore how a simple animated series about 4 kids in a small Colorado town became a cultural phenomenon that continues to shape conversations about free speech, political correctness, and the role of comedy in society. We'll see how the show has adapted to changing times while maintaining its essential character, and how it has managed to stay shocking and relevant in an era when nothing seems capable of surprising US anymore. This timeline is really the timeline of America itself over the past 25 years, filtered through the warped perspective of Trey Parker and Matt Stone's comedic genius. It's a story of evolution, controversy, and the enduring power of satire to make sense of senseless times. So settle in, get comfortable, and prepare to revisit the moments that defined not just a television show, but an entire era of American culture. After all, as South Park has taught us time and again, if you can't laugh at the absurdity of it all, you might just go crazy. Long before South Park became a household name, before Comedy Central executives knew what hit them, and before anyone could imagine that a crude 5-minute Christmas video would spawn a cultural phenomenon, there was a simple college assignment that changed everything. The year was 1992, and two University of Colorado film students named Trey Parker and Matt Stone were about to create something that would define not just their careers, but an entire generation's approach to irreverent humor. The original The Spirit of Christmas wasn't even called South Park. It was just a class project created using construction paper cutouts and stop-motion animation techniques that would make even the most amateur YouTuber today cringe. Parker and Stone had no budget, no professional equipment, and certainly no grand vision of creating a television empire. What they did have was an irreverent sense of humor, a willingness to push boundaries, and apparently a lot of free time during the holiday season. The premise was beautifully simple and utterly blasphemous. Jesus Christ and Santa Claus get into a fight over who should be the focus of Christmas, while four foul-mouthed children watch and comment on the theological smackdown. In just 5 minutes, Parker and Stone managed to offend virtually every religious sensibility while creating characters and a tone that would define their work for decades to come. The construction paper cutouts were crude, the animation was choppy, and the voice acting was clearly done by college students in their dorm room. It was perfect. What made this early version so remarkable wasn't its technical prowess, but its fearless approach to sacred cows. Here was a Christmas story that dared to suggest that maybe, just maybe, the holiday had become a bit ridiculous. The idea that Jesus and Santa would resort to physical violence over Christmas supremacy was both deeply offensive and oddly logical. After all, if you really think about it, the two figures represent completely different approaches to the holiday, and their coexistence has always been somewhat awkward. The four children who would eventually become Stan, Kyle, Cartman, and Kenny were present in this early incarnation, though their personalities weren't fully formed yet. Even then, however, you could see the seeds of what they would become. There is the voice of reason, the moral center, the troublemaker, and the kid who dies. The dynamic was already there, waiting to be developed and refined over years of storytelling. What's fascinating about this original creation is how it accidentally established so many themes that would define South Park throughout its run. The collision between childhood innocence and adult corruption, the willingness to tackle religious and cultural taboos, the use of extreme situations to highlight everyday absurdities. It was all there in embryonic form. Parker and Stone had stumbled onto something much bigger than a class project. They had found their voice. The technical limitations actually worked in its favor. The crude construction paper aesthetic forced the creators to focus on writing and character rather than flashy animation. This constraint would become a defining characteristic of South Park, proving that you don't need Pixar-level animation to tell compelling stories or create memorable characters. Sometimes, simplicity is more powerful than sophistication. Word about the video began to spread through the University of Colorado campus and beyond. This was still the early days of the internet, long before YouTube or viral videos were even concepts, but somehow this little Christmas cartoon began making its way around. People were copying it onto VHS tapes and sharing it with friends. It was grassroots distribution at its finest, proving that truly original content could find an audience even without traditional marketing or distribution channels. The reaction was exactly what you might expect. Some people were horrified, others were delighted, and most were simply shocked that someone had actually made such a thing. The very fact that it existed seemed to challenge conventional notions of what was acceptable in entertainment. This wasn't Saturday Night Live pushing boundaries within the established framework of network television. This was something completely outside the system, created by people who apparently hadn't gotten the memo about what you weren't supposed to do. As the video continued to circulate, it caught the attention of some Hollywood executives who recognized that Parker and Stone had tapped into something significant. The irreverent humor, the willingness to offend, and the unique animation style all suggested that these young creators might be capable of something bigger. But at this point, nobody could have predicted just how big South Park would eventually become. The success also demonstrated something important about American audiences. They were hungry for content that didn't talk down to them or try to protect them from uncomfortable truths. The video's popularity suggested that there was a significant audience for comedy that was willing to go places that mainstream entertainment wouldn't dare venture. This would prove to be a crucial insight as Parker and Stone developed their approach to satirical comedy. Looking back at this original creation now, after decades of South Park episodes, movies, Broadway shows, and cultural impact, it's remarkable how fully formed the concept was from the very beginning. The DNA of everything that would follow was already present in those crude construction paper cutouts, fighting over Christmas. The fearless approach to controversy, the sophisticated humor disguised as childish antics, and the fundamental belief that nothing should be off-limits for comedy. It was all there, waiting to be refined and expanded. The spirit of Christmas wasn't just the beginning of South Park. It was the beginning of a new approach to animated comedy that would influence countless creators and redefine what was possible in television entertainment. It proved that sometimes the most powerful statements come from the most unexpected places, and that true innovation often looks crude and amateurish at first glance. Most importantly, it established that Parker and Stone were forces to be reckoned with, creators who weren't interested in playing by anyone else's rules. When Comedy Central picked up South Park for its first season in 1997, nobody quite knew what they were getting into. The network had seen the viral success of The Spirit of Christmas and recognized that Parker and Stone had struck comedic gold, but translating a 5-minute Christmas short into a full television series was uncharted territory. What emerged was something that would fundamentally change not just animated television, but the entire landscape of satirical comedy. Cartman Gets an Anal Probe, the very first episode that aired on August 13th, 1997, immediately established that this wasn't going to be your typical children's cartoon. Within minutes, viewers were introduced to alien abductions, government cover-ups, and a fat kid obsessed with his posterior examination. The episode set the tone for everything that would follow. Nothing was too weird, too gross, or too controversial to explore. Most importantly, it introduced the world to 4 characters who would become cultural icons. Stan Marsh emerged as the everyman, the character through whom normal people could relate to the insanity surrounding him. Kyle Broflovski became the moral center, often serving as the voice of reason in increasingly unreasonable situations. Eric Cartman was pure ID unleashed, a character so selfish and manipulative that he became simultaneously despicable and irresistible. And Kenny McCormick, muffled by his orange parka, became famous for dying in increasingly elaborate ways, only to mysteriously return in the next episode as if nothing had happened. The genius of these early episodes was how they used the framework of childhood to explore adult themes. By placing sophisticated social commentary in the mouths of 8-year-olds, Parker and Stone could address serious issues while maintaining plausible deniability. After all, these are just kids being kids, right? The fact that their adventures involved alien conspiracies, religious cults, and political corruption was just coincidence. Chef, voiced by Isaac Hayes, became an essential part of the show's DNA during these formative years. His role as the school cafeteria cook who inexplicably possessed infinite wisdom about life and love provided a perfect counterpoint to the children's innocence. Chef could deliver exposition about complex adult topics while maintaining the show's absurdist sensibility. His sultry musical numbers became a recurring highlight, turning mundane life lessons into R&B masterpieces that somehow made perfect sense within the show's warped logic. Mr. Garrison, the boy's perpetually confused and inappropriate teacher, established South Park's approach to authority figures. Rather than presenting adults as wise mentors, the show revealed them to be just as confused, petty, and ridiculous as children, only with more power to cause damage. Garrison's various personal crises, identity issues, and completely unsuitable teaching methods became a running commentary on the American education system and adult dysfunction in general. These early seasons also established the rapid-fire production schedule that would become one of the show's defining characteristics. While other animated shows required months or even years to produce episodes, Parker and Stone developed a system that allowed them to create shows in a matter of days. This capability would prove crucial as the show evolved into a real-time commentary on current events. But even in these early days, it allowed for a spontaneity and freshness that traditional animation couldn't match. Kenny's deaths became a running gag that perfectly encapsulated South Park's approach to comedy. Death, usually the most serious and final of subjects, became a source of dark humor and narrative convenience. The fact that Kenny always returned without explanation suggested that South Park existed in a universe where consequences were fluid and logic was optional. This established a crucial precedent for how the show would handle continuity and reality. Celebrity appearances and parodies began early, with figures like Barbra Streisand and Patrick Duffy finding themselves transformed into giant monsters threatening the town of South Park. These episodes established a policy of equal opportunity mockery. Nobody was too famous, too powerful, or too sacred to escape satirical treatment. The fact that real celebrities were being lampooned by construction paper cutouts somehow made the commentary more pointed and effective. The 1999 film South Park, bigger, longer, and uncut, represented a crucial moment in the timeline, proving that the characters and humor could sustain a feature-length story while dramatically expanding the show's scope and ambition. The movie's musical format and its central theme about censorship and moral panic felt like a natural evolution of everything the show had been building toward. It also demonstrated that South Park could function as both entertainment and genuine social commentary. What's remarkable about these early seasons is how quickly the show found its voice and established its core principles. The animation style, while still crude by traditional standards, developed its own aesthetic appeal. The voice acting, with Parker and Stone handling most of the main characters themselves, created a distinctive sound that became instantly recognizable. Most importantly, the writing established a template for satirical comedy that countless other shows would attempt to emulate. The show's treatment of religion, politics, and social issues during this period was fearless but not nihilistic. While South Park delighted in puncturing pompous balloons and exposing hypocrisy, it never felt mean-spirited or cruel toward genuine human suffering. The target was always pretension, corruption, and stupidity, not the vulnerable or powerless. This distinction would become crucial as the show tackled increasingly controversial subjects in later seasons. By the end of its third season, South Park had established itself as more than just a cartoon about foul-mouthed kids. It had become a cultural phenomenon that could spark national conversations about free speech, moral values, and the role of comedy in society. The foundation had been laid for everything that would follow. The celebrity feuds, the political commentary, the international incidents, and the endless debates about whether anything should be off-limits for humor. These early episodes created a universe where anything was possible, where sacred cows were slaughtered weekly, and where 4 elementary school students could serve as guides through the chaos of modern American life. It was a universe that millions of viewers would inhabit for decades to come. As South Park settled into its rhythm in the late 1990s and early 2000s, something remarkable began to happen. What had started as a crude animated series about 4 foul-mouthed kids evolved into something far more sophisticated. A real-time satirical commentary machine capable of dissecting and demolishing the absurdities of contemporary culture with surgical precision. The creators had discovered that their little mountain town could serve as a laboratory for exploring the bigger ideas that were shaping American society. The episode Underpants Gnomes from Season 2 became an accidental masterpiece of economic satire that would be quoted in business schools and political debates for years to come. The gnomes' business plan, collect underpants, then profit, with no clear step 2, became a perfect metaphor for the dot-com bubble, corporate doublespeak, and a magical thinking that pervades so much of American capitalism. What seemed like a throwaway joke about tiny creatures stealing underwear actually illuminated Parker and Stone's growing sophistication in identifying and skewering systemic problems. This period marked South Park's transition from shock comedy to genuine social commentary. While the show never abandoned its willingness to offend, the creators began using their platform to examine deeper cultural phenomena. Episodes like Chin Pakaman brilliantly satirized American consumer culture and foreign influence panic, while Sexual Harassment Panda took aim at the growing industry of sensitivity, training, and corporate correctness. These weren't just random targets. They were carefully chosen symbols of larger societal trends that the creators found ridiculous. The genius of South Park during this era was its ability to identify emerging cultural patterns before they became obvious to everyone else. The rapid production schedule meant that Parker and Stone could respond to current events with unprecedented speed. But more importantly, they developed an almost supernatural ability to spot the underlying absurdities that would eventually become major cultural problems. They weren't just commenting on what was happening. They were predicting what would happen next. Corporate culture became a particular target during this period, with episodes exploring everything from the sanitization of public spaces to the commodification of childhood experiences. The show's treatment of chains like Harbucks, clearly Starbucks, and various big box retailers revealed an understanding of how corporate homogenization was transforming American communities. What made these critiques particularly effective was that they came from the perspective of children who were supposed to be innocent consumers of this culture. The characters themselves began to develop more distinct personalities and ideological positions during this period. Kyle's earnestness and moral certainty made him the perfect foil for increasingly complex ethical dilemmas. Stan's growing cynicism reflected the disillusionment of Generation X as they came of age in an era of corporate dominance and cultural fragmentation. Cartman's pure selfishness became a dark mirror of American individualism taken to its logical extreme. And Kenny's repeated deaths and resurrections served as a metaphor for the disposability of the working class in an economy that treated people as expendable resources. Celebrity culture during this era wasn't just about mocking famous people. Episodes examined the entire machinery of fame and its corrosive effects on both celebrities and the public. The treatment of figures like Rob Reiner and his anti-smoking crusade revealed how even well-intentioned activism could become self-serving and authoritarian when filtered through celebrity ego and media attention. Political correctness emerged as a major theme during this period, but South Park's approach was more nuanced than simple conservative pushback. The show seemed to recognize that while sensitivity to others' feelings was generally good, the institutionalization of that sensitivity often led to absurd outcomes that actually hindered genuine communication and understanding. Episodes dealing with hate crime legislation, diversity training, and cultural sensitivity programs revealed the creators' skepticism about top-down solutions to complex social problems. The evolution of animation during this period reflected the show's growing ambitions. While maintaining its deliberately crude aesthetic, the production values improved dramatically, allowing for more complex visual gags and elaborate set pieces. The creators learned to use their technical limitations as creative assets, developing a distinctive style that was instantly recognizable and perfectly suited to their satirical purposes. Educational institutions became frequent targets during this era, with episodes exploring everything from standardized testing to zero-tolerance policies. South Park Elementary and its various administrators, teachers, and policies served as a microcosm of broader problems in American education. The absurdities of modern schooling, from overreaction to minor infractions to the bureaucratization of learning, provided rich material for satirical exploration. The media landscape itself became a subject of increasing scrutiny. Episodes dealing with cable news, talk shows, and emerging internet culture demonstrated Parker and Stone's understanding of how information was being transformed from education into entertainment. The show's treatment of these topics was particularly effective because it used the medium of television to critique television itself, creating a kind of meta-commentary that was both funny and genuinely insightful. What's remarkable about this period is how the show managed to maintain its edge while becoming more sophisticated. The crude humor and shocking content that initially attracted viewers remained, but they were increasingly deployed in service of larger points about society, culture, and human nature. South Park was growing up without losing its essential character, developing into something that could function simultaneously as lowbrow entertainment and highbrow social criticism. By the end of this formative period, South Park had established itself as more than just an animated series. It had become a cultural institution with the power to shape public discourse and influence political debate. The foundation was laid for everything that would follow: the celebrity feuds, the international incidents, and the endless conversations about the role of comedy in a democratic society. September 11th, 2001, changed everything in America, and South Park was no exception. For a show that had built its reputation on fearless irreverence and willingness to mock anything and everything, the terrorist attacks presented an unprecedented challenge. How do you make people laugh when the world feels like it's falling apart? How do you maintain your commitment to satirical comedy when genuine tragedy has struck at the heart of your country? Parker and Stone faced these questions head-on, and their response would define not just their show, but their role as cultural commentators for a generation. The immediate aftermath of 9/11 saw many comedy shows struggle with tone and content. Late-night hosts took extended breaks. Saturday Night Live famously asked if it was okay to be funny anymore, and the entire entertainment industry seemed to pause and reconsider its purpose. South Park, with its rapid production schedule and history of controversial content, was in a particularly delicate position. The creators had to navigate between their artistic integrity and the changed emotional landscape of their audience. When South Park did return to addressing current events, it did so with characteristic boldness, but also with surprising nuance. Episodes like Osama bin Laden has farty pants demonstrated the show's ability to process national trauma through its unique comedic lens, rather than ignoring the reality of terrorism or treating it with excessive solemnity. Parker and Stone found a way to rob the terrorists of their power through ridicule. By reducing bin Laden to a cartoon villain prone to slapstick mishaps, they offered viewers a way to psychologically process genuine fear through laughter. Post 9/11 paranoia and security theater proved particularly prescient subject matter. Episodes dealing with airport security, government surveillance, and the erosion of civil liberties in the name of safety captured the absurdities of America's response to terrorism long before these became widely acknowledged problems. South Park's ability to identify the ways that fear could be manipulated for political gain demonstrated the creators' sophisticated understanding of power dynamics and social psychology. The emergence of the Department of Homeland Security, color-coded threat levels, and various security measures provided rich material for satirical exploration. The show's portrayal of these developments wasn't simply anti-government, it was anti-stupidity. The creators seemed to recognize the difference between legitimate security concerns and performative measures designed more to reassure the public than to actually provide protection. This distinction would become increasingly important as the war on terror expanded into Iraq and beyond. Political correctness took on new dimensions in the post-9/11 era, and South Park was uniquely positioned to explore these changes. The show's long-standing skepticism of sensitivity, training, and cultural accommodation suddenly felt more relevant as America grappled with questions about religious tolerance, racial profiling, and the limits of free expression in wartime. Episodes dealing with these themes revealed how crisis could be used to justify previously unacceptable restrictions on liberty and discourse. Cartman became particularly important during this period as a vehicle for exploring the darker impulses that national crisis can unleash. His casual bigotry, authoritarian tendencies, and willingness to exploit others' fears for personal gain made him a perfect representative of the worst aspects of American response to terrorism. Through Cartman's various schemes and prejudices, the show could examine uncomfortable truths about how quickly democratic values could erode under pressure. International perspective became more pronounced during this era, with episodes exploring how America's response to terrorism was perceived abroad. The show's willingness to acknowledge American hypocrisy and imperial overreach, while still maintaining sympathy for genuine victims of terrorism, demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of global politics that was often missing from mainstream media coverage. The Iraq War provided particularly fertile ground for satirical commentary. South Park's treatment of the conflict avoided simple pro-war or anti-war positions, instead focusing on the manipulation of public opinion. The gap between official rationales and actual motivations, and the human cost of political decisions made by people who would never face the consequences themselves. Episodes dealing with military recruitment, media coverage of the war, and the treatment of veterans revealed the creator's ability to find humor in tragedy without minimizing genuine suffering. The show's exploration of patriotism versus nationalism became a recurring theme. Through various episodes, Parker and Stone seemed to distinguish between love of country and uncritical support for government actions. Their satire targeted the commercialization of patriotism, the political exploitation of national symbols, and the tendency to conflate criticism of policy with betrayal of principle. This nuanced approach allowed them to maintain their iconoclastic stance while avoiding the appearance of unpatriotic sentiment. Religious themes took on new urgency during this period, as questions about Islamic extremism, Christian fundamentalism, and the role of faith in public life became central to American political discourse. South Park's treatment of these subjects maintained its equal opportunity irreverence while acknowledging the genuine spiritual needs that religion serves for many people. The critique focused on extremism and exploitation rather than faith itself. The media's role in shaping public perception of terrorism and war became a frequent target. Episodes dealing with cable news coverage, embedded journalism, and the 24-hour news cycle demonstrated Parker and Stone's understanding of how information warfare had become as important as actual combat. Their portrayal of media figures and news organizations revealed the perverse incentives that drove sensationalism and partisan spin rather than genuine information. What's remarkable about South Park's response to this period is how it managed to maintain its comedic edge while grappling with genuinely serious subjects. The creators seemed to understand that laughter wasn't disrespectful to victims of tragedy. It was a necessary psychological defense mechanism that allowed people to process overwhelming events. By refusing to abandon their satirical mission, they provided a service that more conventional media couldn't offer. This period established South Park as more than just entertainment. It became a form of political and social commentary that could reach audiences who might never engage with traditional forms of analysis. The foundation was laid for later treatments of elections, social movements, and cultural conflicts that would define the following decades. In the annals of television history, few episodes have generated as much real-world controversy as South Park's Trapped in the Closet, which aired on November 16, 2005. What began as a typical South Park satire of celebrity culture and religious beliefs quickly escalated into a full-scale war between the show's creators and some of the most powerful figures in Hollywood. The episode didn't just mock Scientology and Tom Cruise. It fundamentally changed the relationship between satirical comedy and celebrity power, establishing precedents for free speech that continue to resonate today. The episode's premise was characteristically absurd. Stan takes a personality test and is declared the reincarnation of Ron Hubbard, Scientology's founder. This leads to a series of increasingly ridiculous encounters with Tom Cruise, John Travolta, and various Scientology officials, culminating in the titular sequence where Cruz literally hides in a closet and refuses to come out. What made the episode particularly devastating was its clinical dissection of Scientology's beliefs, presented with a disclaimer that simply read, "This is what Scientologists actually believe." The reaction was swift and severe. Tom Cruise reportedly threatened to boycott promotion of Mission Impossible 3 if Viacom, Comedy Central's parent company, didn't ban the episode. Scientologists organized letter-writing campaigns and legal threats. Most dramatically, Isaac Hayes, who had voiced Chef since the show's beginning, quit the series, citing the episode's inappropriate ridicule of religious communities and their beliefs. The irony was not lost on Parker and Stone that Hayes had no problem with the show's previous mockery of Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and virtually every other religious tradition. The controversy revealed the hypocritical nature of celebrity tolerance for satirical comedy. Many of the same figures who had publicly defended artistic freedom when other targets were being mocked suddenly discovered the limits of their commitment to free expression when they became the subjects themselves. Tom Cruise's reported threats demonstrated how celebrity power could be weaponized against creative freedom, using economic leverage to suppress unflattering portrayals. Isaac Hayes' departure was particularly painful for the show's creators, who had considered him not just a voice actor, but a friend and collaborator. Chef had been an integral part of South Park's DNA, providing musical interludes and serving as a voice of wisdom and experience for the boys. Hayes' exit forced Parker and Stone to write Chef out of the show, which they did in characteristically provocative fashion, depicting the character as brainwashed by a cult called the Super Adventure Club before dying in an elaborate accident. The Scientology episode also highlighted the unique challenges faced by satirical comedy in an era of increased legal and economic pressure. Unlike traditional journalism, which operates under established protections for investigative reporting, comedy shows exist in a legal gray area where the boundaries of fair comment and parody are constantly tested. South Park's willingness to risk lawsuits and corporate retaliation in defense of their satirical mission set an important precedent for other creators. The episode's treatment of Scientology was particularly effective because it combined traditional satirical techniques with genuine investigative elements. By presenting the religion's core beliefs in a straightforward manner, Parker and Stone let the absurdity speak for itself. The "this is what Scientologists actually believe" disclaimer served both as legal protection and comedic device, highlighting the gap between religious marketing and actual doctrine. Celebrity culture itself became a central theme during this period, with South Park exploring how fame functioned as a form of social control. Episodes dealing with various celebrities revealed the creators' understanding of how public figures use their status to shape discourse and suppress criticism. The show's equal opportunity approach to celebrity mockery demonstrated that no amount of fame, wealth, or power should exempt anyone from satirical treatment. The legal implications of the Scientology controversy extended far beyond South Park itself. The episode became a test case for the limits of religious satire and the application of fair use protections to comedic content. Legal scholars and free speech advocates watched carefully to see whether corporate pressure could effectively censor satirical expression, establishing precedents that would affect the entire entertainment industry. Parker and Stone's response to the controversy was characteristically defiant. Rather than backing down or offering apologies, they doubled down on their commitment to satirical freedom. Their public statements defending the episode emphasized that comedy should not be subject to religious or celebrity veto power, and that the ability to mock authority figures was essential to democratic discourse. The long-term impact of the Scientology episode extended well beyond its immediate controversy. It established South Park as a defender of satirical freedom and demonstrated that even powerful organizations and celebrities could be held accountable through comedy. The episode's success encouraged other satirical programs to take on previously untouchable targets, expanding the boundaries of acceptable comedic discourse. The episode also revealed the sophisticated nature of South Park's satirical methodology. Rather than relying solely on crude humor or personal attacks, the creators combined research, legal strategy, and comedic technique to create devastating social commentary. Their approach demonstrated that effective satire required not just comedic talent, but also courage, intelligence, and strategic thinking. These technologies could blur the boundaries between real and artificial experiences in potentially problematic ways. The concept of digital citizenship emerged as episodes explored how online behavior differed from face-to-face interaction. Episodes dealing with cyberbullying, online harassment, and digital mob behavior revealed understanding of how digital communication could strip away empathy and enable cruelty that would be unthinkable in physical encounters. The multi-season exploration of internet trolling wasn't just about individual bad actors. It was sophisticated analysis of how digital platforms could be weaponized for psychological manipulation. Streaming services and the transformation of entertainment consumption became increasingly central themes as South Park adapted to its own changing distribution landscape. Commentary on Netflix, YouTube, and various other platforms revealed understanding of how on-demand entertainment was changing audience expectations and creator incentives. Episodes dealing with algorithm-driven content recommendation and the attention economy demonstrated awareness of how entertainment was becoming increasingly personalized and potentially manipulative. The rise of influencer culture provided rich material for exploring how social media had created new forms of celebrity and commercial manipulation. The treatment of YouTube stars, Instagram influencers, and various other forms of digital fame revealed understanding of how online platforms were exploiting young people's desire for attention and validation. The exploration of influencer marketing and sponsored content highlighted how traditional boundaries between entertainment and advertising were dissolving. Artificial intelligence and machine learning became subjects of satirical attention as these technologies began affecting daily life in subtle but significant ways. The treatment of smart home devices, recommendation algorithms, and automated decision-making systems revealed skepticism about technological solutions to human problems. The exploration of how AI systems could perpetuate and amplify human biases demonstrated sophisticated understanding of how seemingly neutral technologies could have profound social implications. The gig economy and digital labor platforms provided opportunities for examining how technology was transforming work and economic relationships. Episodes dealing with ride-sharing services, delivery apps, and various forms of digital freelancing revealed understanding of how technological convenience often masked the exploitation of workers who lacked traditional employment protections. The treatment highlighted how technology companies could avoid responsibility for their workers by classifying them as independent contractors. Digital privacy and surveillance became increasingly important themes as episodes explored how personal data was being collected, analyzed, and monetized by technology companies and government agencies. The treatment of data breaches, targeted advertising, and government surveillance programs revealed understanding of how digital convenience came at the cost of personal privacy. Episodes dealing with terms of service agreements and user data exploitation highlighted the Faustian bargains that users were unknowingly making with technology platforms. The environmental impact of digital technology provided material for exploring the hidden costs of technological convenience. The treatment of energy consumption from data centers, electronic waste, and the material requirements of digital infrastructure demonstrated awareness of how the apparently clean world of digital technology depended on significant real-world resources and environmental damage. Educational technology and digital learning became subjects of satirical exploration as schools and universities increasingly adopted technological solutions to educational challenges. The treatment of online courses, educational apps, and digital learning platforms revealed skepticism about technological solutionism and understanding of how educational technology often prioritized convenience and cost-cutting over actual learning outcomes. What made the exploration of technology in modern life so effective was its focus on human psychology rather than technical details. The creators seemed to understand that the real story wasn't about specific devices or applications, but about how these tools were changing fundamental aspects of human behavior and social organization. Their satirical examination of digital life provided viewers with frameworks for understanding technological change that went far beyond simple pro-technology or anti-technology positions. The treatment of these subjects demonstrated remarkable prescience about the social implications of technological development. By focusing on psychological and social dynamics rather than technical capabilities, South Park provided insights into how technology would affect human life that proved more accurate than much formal academic research or industry analysis. After nearly 2 decades of episodic storytelling, South Park underwent one of the most significant transformations in its history. Beginning with Season 18 in 2014, the show began experimenting with serialized storylines that carried over from episode to episode and season to season. This shift from self-contained episodes to ongoing narratives marked a fundamental change in how South Park operated, reflecting both the creators' artistic evolution and their response to a rapidly changing media landscape, where audiences increasingly expected complex, interconnected storytelling. The introduction of PC Principle in Season 19 represented the most visible symbol of this new approach. Rather than appearing for a single episode and disappearing, PC Principle became a recurring character whose presence fundamentally altered the show's dynamic. His arrival wasn't just a one-off satire of political correctness. It was the beginning of an ongoing exploration of how progressive ideology could become authoritarian when taken to extremes. The character's continued presence forced the show to grapple with contemporary social justice movements in a more sustained and nuanced way than traditional episodic formats would allow. The member Barry's storyline that dominated seasons 19 and 20 demonstrated both the potential and the challenges of serialized storytelling. These mysterious creatures that induced nostalgia for simpler times serve as a metaphor for the cultural and political forces that were driving American society toward increasingly polarized positions. The member berries weren't just a clever satirical device. They were a sustained examination of how nostalgia could be weaponized for political purposes, anticipating themes that would become central to the 2016 election and its aftermath. The serialization experiment coincided with the most ambitious attempt to directly address contemporary politics through the 2016 election storyline. Rather than treating the election as a series of discrete episodes, the creators attempted to create an ongoing narrative that would parallel real-world events. This approach proved both creatively ambitious and practically challenging, as the rapid pace of actual political developments often outstripped the show's ability to respond coherently. The creators found themselves committed to storylines that real-world events had already made obsolete. Gerald Broflovski's transformation into an internet troll provided one of the most psychologically complex character arcs in South Park's history. Rather than simply mocking online harassment as external behavior, the show explored how ordinary people could become addicted to the power and anonymity that digital platforms provided. Gerald's gradual descent into trolling addiction revealed sophisticated understanding of how internet culture could corrupt well-meaning individuals, transforming them into agents of chaos and cruelty. The Denmark storyline and TrollTrace.com represented an attempt to explore global implications of internet culture and digital surveillance. By creating a fictional technology that could identify anonymous internet users, the show examined how governments might respond to online harassment and misinformation. The storyline's international scope reflected understanding that internet culture had become a global phenomenon that transcended national boundaries and traditional forms of governance. Heidi Turner's relationship with Eric Cartman provided an ongoing examination of how toxic personalities could manipulate well-meaning individuals. Rather than treating this dynamic as a single-episode comedy setup, the serialized format allowed for extended exploration of psychological manipulation, emotional abuse, and the gradual erosion of self-worth that characterizes unhealthy relationships. The storyline's development over multiple episodes created genuine emotional investment in characters' fates. The serialization experiment revealed both strengths and weaknesses in South Park's traditional approach to comedy and social commentary. On the positive side, ongoing storylines allowed for more complex character development and sophisticated exploration of social issues. The creators could build themes and ideas across multiple episodes, creating richer satirical commentary than single-episode formats typically allowed. Characters could experience genuine growth and change, making their struggles more emotionally resonant. However, the serialized approach also created significant creative constraints. South Park's traditional strength lay in its ability to respond rapidly to current events, creating episodes that commented on breaking news within days of its occurrence. Commitment to ongoing storylines made this kind of responsiveness more difficult, as new episodes had to serve both immediate satirical purposes and longer narrative arcs. The creators found themselves trapped by their own continuity, unable to pivot as quickly as changing circumstances required. The fan response to serialization was notably mixed. Many longtime viewers appreciated the increased character development and narrative complexity, while others missed the anarchic unpredictability of episodic storytelling. The serialized seasons felt more structured and purposeful, but they also lost some of the chaotic energy that had made South Park distinctive. Episodes felt more like chapters in an ongoing novel rather than self-contained satirical explosions. The technical challenges of serialized production also proved significant. South Park's famously rapid production schedule, which allowed episodes to be created in a matter of days, became more complicated when each episode had to serve ongoing narrative requirements. The creators had to plan storylines well in advance, rather than responding spontaneously to current events, fundamentally altering their creative process. The political implications of serialization became particularly apparent during the 2016 election coverage. The attempt to create ongoing commentary on the presidential race required them to make predictions about electoral outcomes and political developments that ultimately proved incorrect. When real-world events diverged from their narrative expectations, the show's storylines became awkward and disconnected from actual political reality. The international storylines during the serialized period reflected growing awareness of global audience and cultural influence. Episodes dealing with Danish politics, international internet regulation, and global responses to American culture demonstrated understanding that satirical commentary had implications beyond domestic American politics. The resolution of major serialized storylines often proved less satisfying than their development. While South Park excelled at identifying and exploring complex social problems, the creators struggled to provide meaningful conclusions to the elaborate narrative structures they had constructed. The member Barry's storyline, in particular, seemed to dissipate rather than resolve, leaving viewers with sophisticated analysis of cultural problems but little sense of narrative closure. Ultimately, the serialization experiment represented an attempt to evolve artistically while maintaining essential satirical mission. The creators demonstrated that their characters and concepts could sustain extended development, but they also discovered that their greatest strengths lay in rapid response to current events rather than sustained narrative construction. The experience taught valuable lessons about the relationship between form and content in satirical comedy, influencing the show's subsequent return to more episodic formats, while retaining some elements of ongoing character development. When the COVID-19 pandemic swept across the globe in early 2020, shutting down economies, isolating populations, and fundamentally altering daily life for billions of people, every form of entertainment was forced to adapt to unprecedented circumstances. For South Park, a show that had built its reputation on rapid response to current events, the pandemic presented both the ultimate challenge and the perfect opportunity. How do you create satirical comedy about a global tragedy that's still unfolding? How do you maintain production when your entire team is scattered across different locations? And perhaps most importantly, how do you find humor in genuine suffering without minimizing the very real pain that millions of people were experiencing? The answer came in the form of hour-long specials that marked a significant departure from traditional format. The Pandemic Special, which aired in September 2020, represented the fastest the show had ever responded to a major global event. With lockdowns still in effect and the future uncertain, Parker and Stone managed to create a comprehensive satirical response to the crisis that captured both the absurdity and the genuine tragedy of the moment. The special's opening sequence, featuring Randy Marsh in a hazmat suit tending to his marijuana plants while the world burned around him, perfectly encapsulated the approach to pandemic humor. The creators weren't making light of death and suffering. They were examining how people's priorities and behaviors revealed deeper truths about human nature during crisis. Randy's obsession with his personal projects while ignoring larger social responsibilities became a metaphor for how many Americans responded to collective challenges. Lockdown measures, mask mandates, and social distancing requirements demonstrated sophisticated understanding of how public health became politicized during the pandemic. Rather than taking sides in debates about specific policies, South Park focused on the psychological and social dynamics that made rational responses to crisis so difficult. The creators examined how personal freedom, community responsibility, and political identity intersected in ways that often prevented effective collective action. Educational challenges provided rich material for satirical exploration as schools struggled to adapt to remote learning requirements. The portrayal of online education captured both the technological difficulties and the deeper pedagogical problems that the pandemic exposed. Teachers, students, and parents attempting to navigate virtual classrooms revealed how unprepared educational institutions were for digital transformation, while also highlighting the social and emotional functions that schools serve beyond simple information transfer. The economic impact of pandemic restrictions became a recurring theme as episodes explored how lockdown measures affected different communities in dramatically different ways. The examination of essential workers, business closures, and economic inequality revealed understanding of how the pandemic's impact was distributed unequally across society. Episodes dealing with small business struggles and corporate pandemic profiteering highlighted how crisis could exacerbate existing inequalities while creating new forms of exploitation. Mental health and social isolation provided material for exploring how extended lockdowns affected human psychology and social relationships. The treatment of depression, anxiety, and social withdrawal during the pandemic captured genuine psychological dynamics while maintaining satirical edge. The creators examined how digital communication could substitute for human contact in some ways, while failing to meet deeper social and emotional needs. The development and distribution of vaccines became subjects of satirical attention as episodes explored how scientific solutions to public health problems became entangled with political and cultural conflicts. The treatment of vaccine hesitancy, conspiracy theories, and public health messaging revealed understanding of how mistrust in institutions could undermine even effective medical interventions. Rather than simply mocking anti-vaccine sentiment, the creators examined the deeper social and political dynamics that made large portions of the population skeptical of expert guidance. Political responses to the pandemic provided endless opportunities for satirical commentary as elected officials struggled to balance public health concerns with economic and political pressures. The treatment of federal, state, and local government responses revealed understanding of how political considerations often took precedence over public health science. The examination of political messaging, blame shifting, and crisis communication highlighted how democratic governance could become dysfunctional during emergencies. The role of media in shaping public understanding of the pandemic became an increasingly important theme as episodes explored how news coverage, social media, and expert commentary influenced public behavior. The treatment of contradictory guidance, sensationalized reporting, and information overload captured how difficult it became for ordinary citizens to distinguish reliable information from speculation or manipulation. International responses to the pandemic provided opportunities for examining how different political and cultural systems addressed the same global challenge. The treatment of international cooperation, travel restrictions, and comparative national responses revealed understanding of how the pandemic exposed fundamental differences in values and governance approaches across different societies. The adaptation of South Park's own production process during the pandemic became a meta-commentary on how creative industries responded to lockdown restrictions. The creators' ability to maintain their rapid production schedule while working remotely demonstrated both the possibilities and limitations of digital collaboration. Their continued ability to produce topical content during unprecedented circumstances proved the resilience of their creative process. Technology's role in pandemic response provided material for exploring how digital tools could both enable and complicate crisis management. The treatment of contact tracing, remote work, and digital surveillance revealed understanding of how emergency measures could normalize previously unacceptable forms of monitoring and control. The show examined how temporary crisis responses could become permanent features of social organization. The long-term social and cultural changes resulting from the pandemic became subjects of ongoing satirical exploration as episodes examined how temporary adaptations might permanently alter social norms and institutions. The treatment of remote work, digital social interaction, and changed consumer behavior revealed understanding of how crisis could accelerate existing trends while creating entirely new forms of social organization. What made pandemic commentary so effective was its ability to find genuine humor in genuinely serious circumstances without minimizing the reality of suffering or sacrifice. The creators managed to maintain their satirical edge while acknowledging the unprecedented nature of the global crisis. Their approach demonstrated that comedy could serve important social functions during difficult times, providing psychological relief while encouraging critical thinking about collective responses to shared challenges. The pandemic specials represented South Park at its most sophisticated, demonstrating how satirical comedy could address complex global issues while maintaining its essential irreverent character. The creators proved that their approach to social commentary could adapt to unprecedented circumstances while remaining true to their fundamental mission of finding humor in human folly. The entertainment landscape that South Park inhabits today bears little resemblance to the one in which it was born. When the show premiered in 1997, television was still dominated by traditional networks operating on fixed schedules, with viewers gathering around their sets at specific times to watch their favorite programs. The concept of binge watching didn't exist, social media was in its infancy, and the idea that viewers might expect to access any content at any time seemed like science fiction. Yet, as streaming services revolutionized how entertainment is created, distributed, and consumed, South Park found itself at the center of industry upheavals that would test its adaptability and redefine its place in popular culture. The rise of Netflix as a dominant force in entertainment provided rich material for satirical exploration, while simultaneously creating new opportunities and challenges for the show itself. Episodes dealing with algorithm-driven content recommendation, binge-watching behavior, and the economics of subscription streaming revealed understanding of how on-demand entertainment was changing audience expectations and viewing habits. The portrayal of Netflix's content strategy, from prestige dramas to reality television, captured both the democratizing potential and homogenizing effects of platform-based entertainment distribution. South Park's own distribution history became a fascinating case study in the evolution of media rights and streaming economics. Various licensing deals with different platforms over the years illustrated how valuable content could become a bargaining chip in corporate negotiations. When episodes disappeared from one service and appeared on another, fans experienced firsthand how streaming wars could fragment content libraries and force viewers to maintain multiple subscriptions to access their favorite shows. The 2019 announcement of the massive deal with HBO Max, later rebranded as Max, represented one of the largest content licensing agreements in television history, reportedly worth over $500 million. This agreement granted Warner Media exclusive streaming rights to the extensive catalog while also committing the creators to produce additional content for the platform. The deal's structure, including both classic episodes and new specials, demonstrated how streaming services were willing to pay premium prices for established franchises that could attract and retain subscribers. However, the streaming landscape proved more volatile than anyone anticipated. Corporate mergers, platform consolidations, and strategic pivots meant that content could migrate between services with little warning. South Park episodes that were available on one platform could suddenly become exclusive to another, creating confusion among fans and highlighting the instability of digital content ownership. This volatility became a recurring theme in the show's own satirical treatment of media consolidation and corporate decision-making. The concept of content wars provided endless material for satirical exploration as streaming services competed for both viewers and creators. The treatment of platform-specific content, exclusive releases, and the arms race for subscriber attention revealed understanding of how competition between services could both benefit and frustrate consumers. Episodes dealing with the proliferation of streaming platforms captured the absurdity of a marketplace where viewers needed multiple subscriptions to access content that was once available through a single cable package. YouTube and other user-generated content platforms presented both opportunities and challenges for traditional entertainment creators. The exploration of influencer culture, viral content, and the democratization of media production revealed sophisticated understanding of how digital platforms were changing the economics of content creation. The treatment of YouTube celebrities and social media influencers highlighted the tension between traditional entertainment industry structures and new forms of digital celebrity. The economics of streaming revealed fundamental changes in how entertainment was funded and monetized. Unlike traditional television, which relied primarily on advertising revenue, streaming services operated on subscription models that created different incentives for content creation. The satirical examination of these economic models revealed how platform priorities could influence creative decisions, potentially favoring content that encouraged binge-watching over standalone episodes. International distribution became increasingly important as streaming platforms sought global audiences to justify their massive content investments. South Park's own international availability varied significantly between platforms and regions, creating a complex web of licensing restrictions that fans had to navigate. The satirical treatment of global content distribution highlighted how cultural products could become entangled in international trade disputes and regulatory frameworks. The concept of peak TV, the idea that the sheer volume of available content had reached unsustainable levels, provided material for exploring how abundance could create its own problems. The treatment of content overload, decision paralysis, and the attention economy revealed understanding of how technological solutions to distribution problems could create new forms of consumer confusion and fatigue. Data analytics and algorithmic recommendation systems became subjects of satirical attention as streaming platforms increasingly relied on viewer data to drive content decisions. The exploration of how viewing habits were tracked, analyzed, and monetized revealed understanding of how entertainment consumption had become a form of surveillance capitalism that turned viewers into products being sold to advertisers and content creators. The impact of streaming on traditional television infrastructure created ripple effects throughout the entertainment industry. The examination of cord cutting, the decline of cable television, and the transformation of broadcast networks revealed how technological change could disrupt established business models and force entire industries to reinvent themselves. Original content production by streaming platforms created new forms of competition for traditional networks and production companies. The satirical treatment of platform-specific content strategies, from Netflix's algorithm-driven productions to Apple TV Plus's prestige focus, captured how different corporate cultures and strategic priorities influence creative decisions. The phenomenon of streaming service churn, the tendency for subscribers to sign up, binge specific content, and then cancel their subscriptions, created new challenges for platform sustainability. The exploration of subscription management promotional offers, and customer retention strategies revealed understanding of how streaming business models required constant content refreshment to maintain subscriber loyalty. What made commentary on streaming wars particularly effective was its insider perspective on the industry disruptions that were affecting its own distribution and business model. The creators could examine these changes not just as external observers, but as participants whose own work was being bought, sold, and redistributed according to corporate strategies that often seemed disconnected from creative considerations. The long-term implications of streaming wars extended beyond simple content distribution to fundamental questions about media ownership, cultural access, and the sustainability of creative industries. The ongoing examination of these issues provided viewers with frameworks for understanding changes that were reshaping not just entertainment, but information distribution and cultural participation more broadly. In the vast landscape of television history, few phenomena are as remarkable as the eternal childhood of Stan Marsh, Broflovski, Eric Cartman, and Kenny McCormick. For over 25 years, these four boys have remained perpetually locked in fourth grade, experiencing the trials and tribulations of elementary school, while the world around them has undergone radical transformation. This unique temporal arrangement has created one of the most fascinating character studies in all of entertainment, allowing viewers to witness not just how fictional personalities can evolve within constrained circumstances, but how consistent character traits can be expressed across dramatically different social and cultural contexts. Stan Marsh began the series as the archetypal everyman, serving as the audience's entry point into South Park's increasingly bizarre universe. His role as the voice of reason and moral center has remained consistent throughout the show's run, but the nature of the challenges he faces has evolved dramatically. In early seasons, Stan's concerns were typically childhood-focused, dealing with difficult teachers, navigating elementary school social dynamics, and trying to understand the confusing behavior of adults. As the series progressed and began addressing more complex social and political issues, Stan's function shifted to serve as a representative of common sense, struggling against institutional madness and cultural absurdity. The evolution of Stan's relationship with his father Randy has provided one of the show's most sustained character arcs. Initially portrayed as a well-meaning but clueless geologist, Randy's transformation into an increasingly selfish and irresponsible adult has forced Stan to mature emotionally while remaining physically static. This dynamic has allowed the creators to explore themes of generational conflict, parental disappointment, and the burden that children bear when adults fail to act responsibly. Stan's growing cynicism and disillusionment with adult authority reflects broader cultural trends while maintaining the perspective of someone who is still, technically, only 8 years old. Broflovski's role as the group's moral compass has remained remarkably consistent, even as the specific moral challenges he faces have become increasingly complex. His Jewish identity has provided a consistent framework for exploring issues of minority experience, religious tolerance, and cultural difference. Kyle's earnest commitment to doing the right thing has made him both admirable and occasionally insufferable, perfectly capturing the complexity of moral certainty in an ambiguous world. His ongoing conflicts with Cartman have evolved from simple playground antagonism to sophisticated explorations of ideology, prejudice, and the persistence of hatred across different social contexts. Eric Cartman represents perhaps the most remarkable character consistency in the series. His fundamental selfishness, manipulativeness, and capacity for cruelty have remained unchanged since the show's inception. Yet these traits have been expressed through increasingly sophisticated schemes that reflect contemporary social and political developments. Cartman's ability to identify and exploit whatever cultural anxieties or political movements serve as immediate interest has made him a perfect vehicle for satirical commentary. His character demonstrates how certain personality types can adapt their expression to different historical moments while maintaining their essential nature. Kenny McCormick's evolution from silent victim to occasional voice of wisdom represents one of the show's most subtle character developments. His deaths, which began as random violent accidents, have become increasingly elaborate and often meaningful within episode contexts. The revelation of Kenny's awareness of his own mortality and resurrection cycle added psychological depth to what had been purely a comedic device. His family's poverty has provided consistent material for exploring economic inequality and class differences, making Kenny a representative of economic marginalization within the group's dynamic. The supporting characters have undergone more dramatic changes, reflecting the creators' growing confidence in expanding their fictional universe. Chef's departure after Isaac Hayes' exit forced the show to reimagine its approach to adult guidance, leading to increased focus on other authority figures like Principal Victoria, Mr. Mackey, and various teachers. The introduction of characters like PC Principal and Strong Woman demonstrated the show's ability to add new elements to its established universe while maintaining consistency with existing character relationships. The character of Butters Stotch has evolved from occasional background presence to major supporting character, representing innocence and naivety in contrast to the main character's growing sophistication. His consistently cheerful demeanor and trusting nature have provided opportunities for exploring how genuinely good-hearted individuals navigate an increasingly cynical world. Butters' various adventures and misadventures have allowed the creators to examine childhood from a different perspective while maintaining the show's satirical edge. Randy Marsh's transformation from background character to central figure represents one of the most significant character developments in the series. His evolution from responsible adult to increasingly irresponsible man-child has paralleled broader cultural observations about arrested development and the failure of institutions. Randy's various obsessions and schemes have provided vehicles for exploring everything from social media addiction to marijuana legalization, demonstrating how character development can serve satirical purposes. The female characters in South Park have evolved significantly as the creators have developed more sophisticated approaches to gender representation. Winnie Testaberger's role has expanded from simple love interest to independent character with her own agency and concerns. The addition of characters like PC Principal's girlfriend Strong Woman and various other female authority figures has provided opportunities for exploring contemporary gender dynamics while maintaining the show's irreverent tone. The aging question, why the characters never grow older, has been addressed occasionally within the show itself, typically through episodes that temporarily age characters before returning them to their original states. This approach allows the creators to explore what adult versions of these characters might become while maintaining the essential dynamic that makes the show work. The permanent childhood serves important narrative functions, providing stability and continuity while allowing for dramatic social and cultural changes in the surrounding world. The consistency of character relationships has provided emotional anchors for viewers across decades of episodes. Stan and Kyle's friendship, despite occasional conflicts, represents genuine loyalty and mutual support. Cartman's antagonistic relationship with Kyle provides consistent conflict that can be adapted to address contemporary issues. Kenny's role as the group's most vulnerable member creates opportunities for both comedy and genuine pathos. What makes character evolution so remarkable is how the creators have managed to maintain essential personality traits while allowing for growth and development within those constraints. The characters feel both familiar and fresh, capable of surprising viewers while remaining true to their established natures. This balance has allowed the show to serve as both nostalgic comfort food and cutting-edge social commentary, creating a unique viewing experience that spans multiple generations of audience members. When historians examine the cultural landscape of the late 20th and early 21st centuries, South Park will undoubtedly occupy a significant place in their analysis. What began as a crude animated series created by two college students has evolved into a genuine cultural institution that has influenced not just television comedy, but broader conversations about free speech, political correctness, and the role of satirical media in democratic societies. The show's impact extends far beyond entertainment, touching legal precedents, international diplomacy, educational curricula, and the fundamental ways that people think about the relationship between comedy and social commentary. The influence on animation and comedy cannot be overstated. Before its arrival, animated television was largely divided between children's programming and adult-oriented shows that relied primarily on family dysfunction for humor. South Park demonstrated that animation could serve as a vehicle for sophisticated political and social commentary, while maintaining broad popular appeal. This success opened doors for countless other creators who wanted to use animation to address adult themes and contemporary issues. Programs like Rick and Morty, BoJack Horseman, and Big Mouth all owe debts to South Park's pioneering work in expanding the possibilities of animated storytelling. The rapid production schedule revolutionized how television could respond to current events. Traditional television production, with its months-long development cycles, made it impossible for scripted shows to comment meaningfully on breaking news or rapidly evolving cultural phenomena. South Park's ability to create episodes in a matter of days established a new model for topical entertainment that influenced everything from late-night talk shows to internet content creation. The concept of real-time satirical response to current events became standard across multiple media platforms. Legal precedents established through various controversies have had lasting impact on free speech jurisprudence. The show's battles with censorship, its confrontations with powerful individuals and organizations, and its defense of satirical expression have contributed to legal frameworks that protect creative freedom. Court cases involving the show have established important principles about parody protection, public figure criticism, and the limits of censorship that extend far beyond entertainment law. These precedents have benefited countless other creators who push boundaries in their own work. International impact has been perhaps the most surprising aspect of cultural influence. Episodes dealing with international events, foreign leaders, and cultural differences have created diplomatic incidents and influenced global conversations about American cultural imperialism. The irreverent treatment of religious and political figures from around the world has sparked debates about cross-cultural sensitivity and the global reach of American media. Some countries have banned the show entirely, while others have used it as a starting point for discussions about free expression and cultural tolerance. Educational institutions have increasingly incorporated South Park into curricula across multiple disciplines. Philosophy professors use episodes to explore ethical dilemmas and moral philosophy. Political science courses examine the treatment of democratic institutions and political processes. Media studies programs analyze its influence on satirical comedy and cultural criticism. The fact that a show featuring foul-mouthed cartoon children has become legitimate academic subject matter speaks to its sophisticated approach to complex social issues. The influence on political discourse has been particularly significant among younger demographics. The douche and turd framework for understanding electoral politics has become part of common political vocabulary, providing citizens with language for expressing dissatisfaction with limited choices in democratic systems. The skeptical approach to political authority has influenced how entire generations view government institutions, political movements, and civic engagement. Celebrity culture and public relations strategies have been permanently altered by the willingness to mock powerful figures without fear of retaliation. The equal opportunity approach to celebrity mockery has established expectations that public figures should be able to tolerate satirical treatment as part of the price of fame. Public relations professionals now consider potential South Park treatment when advising clients about public behavior and media appearances. The concept of cancellation and its limits has been shaped significantly by South Park's survival despite numerous attempts to shut it down or curtail its content. The show's persistence in the face of boycotts, legal threats, and corporate pressure has demonstrated that creative content can survive organized opposition when it maintains sufficient audience support and institutional backing. This example has influenced discussions about cancel culture and the sustainability of controversial content in contemporary media landscapes. Religious and cultural sensitivity debates have been informed by the treatment of sacred subjects and minority communities. The approach to religious satire, in particular, has influenced how other creators address spiritual and cultural themes. While some critics argue that the show's irreverence undermines respect for diverse beliefs, Others contend that its equal opportunity mockery promotes genuine tolerance by refusing to treat any group as exempt from criticism. The economics of comedy and satirical content have been influenced by the business model and financial success. The demonstration that controversial content could be commercially viable has encouraged investment in boundary-pushing comedy and satirical programming. The creators' various business ventures, from video games to Broadway musicals, have shown how successful satirical properties can be expanded across multiple media platforms. Social media and internet culture have been shaped by early recognition of digital communications' importance and potential dangers. The exploration of online behavior, digital relationships, and internet psychology provided frameworks for understanding social media phenomena years before they became mainstream concerns. Many concepts that South Park explored satirically have since become subjects of serious academic and policy research. The approach to moral relativism and ethical complexity has influenced broader cultural conversations about right and wrong in contemporary society. The refusal to provide simple moral lessons or clear heroes and villains has encouraged audiences to think more critically about ethical issues and to question simple solutions to complex problems. This approach has contributed to more sophisticated public discourse about difficult social and political questions. International comedy and satirical traditions have been influenced by global success and cultural penetration. Creators around the world have adapted the techniques and approaches to address local issues and cultural concerns within their own societies. The program has become a template for how satirical comedy can address serious subjects while maintaining broad popular appeal. The lasting legacy lies not just in specific comedic achievements, but in its demonstration that entertainment media can serve important democratic functions by encouraging critical thinking, challenging authority, and providing frameworks for understanding complex social phenomena. The show has proven that comedy and serious social commentary are not mutually exclusive, and that irreverent humor can coexist with genuine insight and cultural value. As we reach the end of our journey through South Park's remarkable timeline, it's worth reflecting on what makes this particular animated series so uniquely positioned to continue thriving in an ever-changing cultural landscape. After more than a quarter-century of consistent production, the show has proven its ability to adapt, evolve, and remain relevant through multiple technological revolutions, political upheavals, and cultural transformations. Yet the question remains, what does the future hold for South Park, and how will it continue to serve its role as America's premier satirical institution? Recent developments in business arrangements provide significant clues about its trajectory. The massive deal with Paramount Plus and Comedy Central, reportedly worth over $900 million through 2027, represents one of the largest content agreements in television history. This financial commitment suggests that corporate executives believe cultural relevance and commercial viability will continue for years to come. More importantly, the deal's structure, which includes both traditional episodes and streaming specials, demonstrates the creator's recognition that future success requires adaptation to new distribution models while maintaining core creative principles. The expansion into feature-length specials and movies represents a significant evolution in format and ambitions. These longer-form projects allow for more complex storytelling and deeper exploration of social issues, while maintaining the rapid production schedule that enables real-time commentary on current events. The success of pandemic specials and other hour-long episodes suggests that audiences are receptive to this format expansion, creating opportunities for more ambitious satirical projects that couldn't be contained within traditional episode lengths. International expansion and global distribution present both opportunities and challenges for future development. As streaming platforms seek content that can appeal to diverse international audiences, the show's specifically American cultural references and political commentary may require adaptation or supplementation with more universally accessible material. However, the track record of successfully addressing global issues and international perspectives suggests that the creators are capable of maintaining their domestic focus while expanding their cultural reach. The integration of new technologies and production techniques continues to enhance capabilities without fundamentally altering aesthetic identity. Improvements in animation software, voice recording technology, and digital distribution have streamlined the production process while maintaining the deliberately crude visual style that defines the show's character. Future technological developments, including potential applications of artificial intelligence and automated production tools, may further accelerate the ability to respond to current events while reducing production costs and technical barriers. The creator's ongoing creative development and artistic maturation suggest that the best work may still lie ahead. Parker and Stone's experience with other projects, including Broadway musicals, feature films, and various business ventures, has expanded their creative capabilities and cultural perspectives. Their continued willingness to experiment with new formats, themes, and approaches indicates that they haven't exhausted their satirical vision or lost their enthusiasm for pushing boundaries and challenging audiences. The changing media landscape presents both challenges and opportunities for continued relevance. The fragmentation of audiences across multiple platforms and the acceleration of news cycles could make it more difficult for any single piece of content to achieve the cultural impact that South Park episodes once routinely generated. However, established brand recognition and loyal fan base provide advantages in cutting through the noise of contemporary media competition. Political and social developments in American culture continue to provide rich material for satirical exploration. The increasing polarization of political discourse, the evolution of social media platforms, and the ongoing transformation of work, education, and social relationships ensure that South Park will have no shortage of subjects to address. The demonstrated ability to identify emerging cultural trends before they become mainstream suggests that the show will continue to serve as an early warning system for social phenomena that other media outlets haven't yet recognized. The question of succession and long-term sustainability inevitably arises when discussing the future. While Parker and Stone remain actively involved in creation and show no signs of stepping back, the eventual transition to new creative leadership will require careful planning to maintain the distinctive voice and cultural relevance. The development of younger writers and creators who understand satirical philosophy while bringing fresh perspectives could ensure continuation beyond its original creator's involvement. Educational and academic interest continues to grow, suggesting that cultural impact extends beyond entertainment into serious scholarly analysis. Universities increasingly incorporate episodes into curricula across multiple disciplines, from philosophy and political science to media studies and cultural criticism. This academic legitimacy could provide additional institutional support for continued production and cultural preservation. The potential for expanded multimedia franchises remains largely untapped, despite successful ventures into video games, merchandising, and theatrical productions. Future developments could include more interactive content, virtual reality experiences, or educational applications that leverage the satirical approach to address serious social issues. The demonstrated ability to adapt content across different media platforms suggests significant potential for further expansion. International political developments and global cultural changes will likely influence thematic focus in coming years. Climate change, technological disruption, international conflict, and cultural transformation provide ongoing subjects for satirical exploration that transcend domestic American politics. The ability to address these global issues while maintaining local perspective and character-driven storytelling will be crucial for continued relevance. The ultimate measure of future success will be the ability to maintain the delicate balance between consistency and evolution that has characterized its entire run. Audiences expect the show to remain true to its core satirical mission while continuing to surprise and challenge them with fresh perspectives on contemporary issues. This balance requires ongoing creative risk-taking combined with respect for the fundamental elements that have made the show enduringly popular. As we look toward the future, it's clear that South Park's greatest strength lies not in any particular episode or satirical target, but in its demonstrated ability to adapt and thrive across changing cultural circumstances while maintaining its essential irreverent spirit. Whether addressing pandemics or political elections, technological disruption or social movements, South Park has proven that satirical comedy can serve important democratic functions by encouraging critical thinking, challenging authority, and providing frameworks for understanding an increasingly complex world. The timeline we've explored here represents not just the history of a television show, but the evolution of American satirical comedy and its role in helping citizens navigate the absurdities and challenges of contemporary life. As South Park continues into its third decade, it remains uniquely positioned to document, mock, and somehow predict the ongoing chaos of modern American existence, one crude, animated episode at a time.